I'm sitting in a corner office on the 14th floor of a building I own outright, and sometimes I still catch myself holding my breath, waiting for someone to tell me I don't belong here. My name is Cecilia Drummond. I'm 67 years old, and for nearly 2 decades my only daughter was convinced I was the reason her life fell apart. She wasn't entirely wrong about the falling apart part, but she had the wrong person to blame. I grew up in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, the kind of neighborhood where everybody knew your name and your business and your grandmother's business too. My mother worked doubles at the hospital laundry. My father was gone before I started kindergarten. I learned early that no one was coming to save you. You either built something or you didn't. I built something. By the time I was 42, I had a small but steady medical transcription business out of the house, a 3-bedroom in Metairie, a daughter in her 2nd year of college, and a husband named Gerald who I had loved, genuinely loved, for 18 years. I also had a mother-in-law named Rosalind who had never once in all those 18 years thought I was good enough for her son. She never said it directly. Rosalind was too refined for that. She said it in the way she touched my furniture when she visited, like she was checking for dust. She said it in the way she talked about Gerald's college girlfriend at every family dinner for a decade. She said it in the way she looked at our house and then looked at me as if to say, "This is smaller than he deserved." Gerald saw none of it. Or he chose not to. Our daughter Nadia saw all of it, and she adored her grandmother anyway. That was the thing I never fully understood until it was too late. Rosalind had given Nadia something I was too busy to give her enough of time, attention, a sense that she was the most important person in the room, while I was building the business, tracking invoices, chasing clients, trying to get us out of debt from Gerald's bad investment in 2003. Rosalind was braiding Nadia's hair and taking her to museums, and telling her to museums, and telling her, quietly, in her particular way, that some women work too much and forget what really matters. I was the woman who worked too much. I didn't know she was planting that seed. I didn't know how deep the roots would go. In 2008, when the economy went sideways and my transcription contracts started dropping off, Gerald started drinking. Not dramatically, not the kind of drinking you notice right away, just a little more each week, a little more each month, until one night I found him asleep on the kitchen floor at 2 in the morning with an empty bottle of bourbon next to the dog bowl. I tried to get him help. I really did. We went to a counselor twice before he refused to go back. I spoke to his brother. I called Rosalind, which was a mistake. She told me that Gerald drank because he was under stress, and that the stress came from financial pressure, and that the financial pressure was because I had let my business fail. My business that I had built alone, from scratch, while raising her grandchild and keeping her son's household running. That business was now my personal failure, and the cause of her son's suffering. I hung up the phone and sat in my car in the driveway for a long time. Things got worse before they got worse. Gerald lost his job at the logistics firm in early 2009. I picked up medical coding work to cover the gap. We argued about money constantly. We argued about Rosalind. We argued about the fact that Nadia was calling her grandmother more than she was calling home. Then in March of 2010, Rosalind had a fall. Fractured her hip. She needed someone to look after her while she recovered, and Gerald volunteered our house without asking me first. She moved into our spare room in April. She left in November. Those 7 months were the longest of my life. By the time she went back to her own home, something in my marriage had curdled. Gerald had stopped looking at me like his partner. He looked at me the way you look at a problem you haven't figured out how to solve yet. In January 2011, I found paperwork on his desk. documents I didn't recognize. I'm not a lawyer, but I know what a quitclaim deed looks like. My name was on it, my signature was on it. I had never signed it. It was for the house. Gerald had transferred ownership of our house, our home, that we had bought together, that I had made every mortgage payment on for 11 years, into his mother's name. I confronted him that night. He told me I was confused. He told me I must have signed something and forgotten. He told me I had been so stressed lately that maybe I wasn't remembering things right. I told him I was going to get a lawyer. He told me that if I did, things would get very difficult for me. He said it calmly, quietly, without raising his voice. That was what scared me most. I called a lawyer anyway. Her name was Patricia Okafor, and she worked out of a small office in Kenner. She took one look at the documents and told me the signature had been notarized by someone named Craig Benfield, who happened to be Rosalind's next-door neighbor of 20 years. That was when I understood what I was dealing with. What happened next moved faster than I knew how to stop. Gerald's lawyer, a man his mother had been paying for quietly as it turned out, filed papers claiming I had been emotionally and verbally abusive. Rosalind provided a sworn statement. 3 of her church friends provided sworn statements. Even Craig Benfield provided a statement, claiming he had witnessed me sign the deed willingly. I had not touched or threatened anyone. But I had no counter-witnesses. I had no record. I had no one who had been in that house watching. The divorce went badly. The asset division went worse. The house, legally transferred before proceedings began, was no longer a marital asset. Gerald kept the car. I got half of a checking account that had $4,200 in it. Nadia was 23 by then, working her first real job in Atlanta. She called me after the proceedings. She said, "Mom, I know you. I know you didn't do what they said." That sentence kept me alive for the next 2 years. I moved into a studio apartment in Gretna, 712 square feet, a window that faced a parking garage. I slept on a mattress on the floor for 3 months because I couldn't afford a bed frame, and I refused to ask anyone for help. I was 51 years old, starting over. I got a job doing medical coding for a home health agency. The pay was modest but steady. I worked every overtime hour they offered. I ate a lot of rice and beans, and I don't say that for sympathy. I actually like rice and beans. But I was intentional about it. Every dollar I didn't spend was a dollar toward something. I didn't know toward what, exactly. I just knew I had to keep moving. The first 18 months were the darkest, not because of the money, because of Nadia. She had started talking to her grandmother again. I only knew because of small things. A reference to a family gathering I hadn't been told about. A mention of Grandma Rosalind in a tone that told me she'd been speaking to her recently. I didn't push. I had learned not to push with Nadia. But then she called me one evening in the winter of 2013, and something in her voice had changed. She said, "Mom, I need to tell you something, and I don't know how." She said that Rosalind had told her things over the past year, slowly, carefully, in Rosalind's particular way. She had told Nadia that I had known about Gerald's drinking and enabled it, that I had been careless with money, that I had refused to get help, that the real reason the marriage collapsed was because I was more interested in my career than in my family. Then she said, "She told me you've been saying things about me to people, bad things, about how I turned out. I want to be careful here because even now I feel the anger rise up when I remember that conversation, but I have to be honest, what I felt most was not anger. What I felt was a strange, specific grief. The grief of watching someone build a case against you with bricks made of things that never happened. I said, "Nadia, None of that is true. She said, I know you'd say that. And she hung up. She stopped calling after that. I called her. She answered sometimes. Short conversations, surface things. The warmth was gone, and I didn't know how to get it back because I didn't understand yet how completely she had been turned. I found out 2 years later from Nadia's cousin Adrian that Rosalind had been telling the story for years, not loudly, not dramatically, just at Sunday dinners and family cookouts and quiet conversations in the kitchen, small persistent drops of poison that had, over time, become the water Nadia swam in. I went to therapy, twice a week for 8 months. My therapist, a quiet woman named Dr. Elaine Norris, said to me once, "You can't compete with someone who has more access than you. You can only build the life that tells the true story." I wrote that down. I taped it to my bathroom mirror. I kept moving. In 2015, I got a better position, lead coding supervisor for a regional hospital group in New Orleans. The pay was nearly double what I'd been making. I moved to a 1-bedroom in Metairie. I bought a bed frame. In 2016, I took every certification course I could afford. In 2017, I put the extra money into an online continuing education platform I'd been building in my evenings and weekends for 2 years. It was specifically for medical billing and coding professionals, exam prep, CEU credits, industry updates. I know it sounds small. It wasn't. By 2019, I had 800 enrolled students and 3 part-time contractors helping me run it. By 2021, I had restructured it into a proper LLC, brought in a business partner, and was clearing more annually than Gerald and I had made combined in our best year of marriage. By 2023, I had moved the company into actual office space, 14th floor, corner office. I built that, alone, from a mattress on the floor in Gretna. Nadia and I had reached a kind of careful peace by then. We talked on holidays. We texted sometimes. She had gotten married in 2019, a small ceremony in Savannah, and she had invited me. I went. I sat quietly in the 4th row, and I smiled when she walked down the aisle, and I did not make a single moment about myself. Her husband, a calm and thoughtful man named Douglas, shook my hand and said, "Nadia's told me a lot about you. I didn't ask what specifically, but something had shifted after that wedding. Not completely, not fixed, but shifted. She started calling more. Actual calls, not just texts. She asked about the business. She was curious in a way she hadn't been before. I answered honestly, without making her feel guilty for the years of distance. I had decided, somewhere in the middle of building my life back, that I would not spend whatever years I had left trying to make Nadia apologize. I wanted her back more than I wanted to be right. I think that decision is what made what came next possible. In February of 2024, Nadia called me on a Tuesday afternoon. I remember the day because I was in the middle of reviewing a contract with our new curriculum director, and I almost let it go to voicemail. Something told me to pick up. She said, "Mom, I need to tell you something," I said. "Okay," she said. "Grandma Rosalind is in hospice." I said nothing. She said, "I've been there a lot lately, sitting with her. And last week she stopped. She told me things, Mum. Things she said she needed to say before she died, about what really happened. With Dad, with the house, with everything." I sat down very slowly in my office chair. Nadia said, "She told me about the deed. She told me she had Craig sign off on it. She told me she told people things about you that weren't true." Her voice was unsteady. "She said she did it because she never thought you were right for Gerald, and she wanted to fix it." I didn't say anything for a long time. Then I said, "How are you doing?" Nadia made a sound I can only describe as breaking and holding together at the same time. She said, "Mom, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for all of it. I should have known. I should have called more and I should have asked you. And I believed her. I believed everything I said, Nadia, stop. I said you were young and she was very good at what she did, and none of that is yours to carry." I heard her cry, really cry. Not the controlled surface kind, the kind that comes from somewhere deep and held too long. I let her. I sat with the phone to my ear and I let her. After a while she said, "Can I come see you?" I said, "I'll put the coffee on." Rosalind passed 6 weeks later. Nadia was with her at the end. I was not. That was the right arrangement for everyone. Gerald called me after the funeral. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. I listened to it once and then deleted it. He sounded like a man who wanted to be forgiven without doing the work of understanding what he'd done. I have no room left in my life for that kind of call. What happened next is the part that still makes me want to sit down when I think about it. Douglas had business in New Orleans in March of 2024, and Nadia came with him. She stayed 4 days. We cooked together in my kitchen. We drove out to Lake Pontchartrain one afternoon and sat in the car watching the water, talking for almost 3 hours. She asked me to walk her through the whole story, every part, starting from the beginning. I did. I didn't soften it. I didn't spare Gerald or Rosalind, but I also didn't dramatize it. I just told her what happened, year by year, the same way I would tell anyone the truth. And when I finished, she was quiet for a long time, and then she said, "You never stopped, did you? You just kept going." I said, "I didn't know what else to do." She said, "I'm proud of you, Mom. I should have said that a long time ago. I'm proud of you." I looked out at the lake. The light was doing something beautiful out on the water. I thought about my mother working doubles in the hospital laundry. I thought about the mattress on the floor in Gretna. I thought about every invoice I'd chased, and every certification I'd earned, and every evening I'd spent building something, when I could have been watching television or feeling sorry for myself. I thought about Dr. Norris and her words on my bathroom mirror. Build the life that tells the true story. I reached over and I held my daughter's hand. I didn't need to say anything. The life I'd built said it all. And for the first time in a very long time, I felt like I had come home.